I used to work overnight shifts at a law office in Midtown. One night around 1 a.m., I started hearing one of the industrial printers kick on, paper feeding, rollers turning, that familiar clunk when a job finishes. It wasn't loud, but it was distinct. The sound was coming from directly above me, through the ceiling, like it was coming from the floor upstairs. The thing is, I work on the top floor. There is no floor upstairs. I was a night document specialist. Basically, I handled late filings, scanned legal exhibits, and prepped big court packets while everyone else was asleep. The office was quiet, and I liked it that way. No phones ringing, no interruptions, just me and the machines. The firm occupied the entire 7th floor of a high-security building with badged elevators and 24/7 front desk staff. Honestly, I felt safer there at 2 a.m. than I did walking to my car in daylight. We used high-capacity copiers, those big gray machines that sound like small engines when they warm up. Even from the floor below, you could sometimes hear them through the walls if the building was quiet. The top floor, though, was supposed to be silent. No offices, no copy room above mine, just the roof and some sealed-off mechanical space. When I first heard the sound, I stood up and listened for a few seconds. The noise repeated, feed, print, pause. Not constant, but enough to know it wasn't a glitch in my head. It sounded like someone was running a batch job. The floor above me wasn't accessible by elevator, and the emergency stairwell was supposed to be locked. Still, I walked to the other side of my floor to check for echo or duct noise, but the sound didn't follow. It stayed right above my cubicle. The next morning, I asked our maintenance guy, Eddie, if anyone used to have offices up there. He gave me a weird look. Above 7? No, that's just the old roof access, sealed off years ago. I asked if he'd ever heard anything up there. He paused, then just said, "The ducts run weird in that part of the building. You get some bounce sometimes." I let it go, but the next night it happened again, almost exactly the same time, 1:12 a.m. I checked the print queue, nothing pending. Our floor's machine was quiet, but I heard the rollers start up above me, faint but unmistakable. It lasted maybe 30 seconds, then silence. The third night, I stood on my desk and pushed the ceiling tile aside, just to peek inside. Nothing unusual, just ductwork and insulation. Still, the space was big enough for someone to crawl through if they wanted to. I dropped the tile back and tried to focus, but the idea stuck with me. After a few nights of the same thing, always around 1:15 a.m., it finally escalated. I was working late, trying to finish a case summary when the copier sound returned, louder this time, a longer run. Then something new, a deep mechanical beep, like someone punching in a large job. It was followed by the click of paper trays adjusting. This wasn't old noise echoing through vents. Someone was up there, printing. Later that night, I texted Eddie and asked him point blank, "Has anyone accessed the old roof level lately?" He was quiet for a second, then replied, "There's no access. Not unless you've got a key to the freight stairwell." I asked if he had one. He said no. That floor's not even on the building permit anymore. We capped it off in the 90s. That weekend, I stayed after hours to check it out myself. There's a service stairwell behind the freight elevator with a metal door labeled Roof Access, Authorized Only. I brought a flashlight and climbed all the way to the top landing. The final door was steel with a keypad and deadbolt, and it was cold, way colder than the stairwell below. I put my hand on the door to lean closer and heard it. The printer, right on the other side. It started with a low hum, then the rollers kicked in. A full job by the sound of it. My heart was pounding. Then came the beep, then another. It didn't stop. like someone was standing there punching buttons over and over again. I knocked once. The sound stopped instantly. For a moment I thought maybe I imagined the whole thing. But then, slowly, the machine fed one more sheet. A single final print. Then silence. I backed away and left that stairwell as fast as I could. That's when I found the old emergency evacuation map inside a utility closet. It listed all 7 floors, but at the very top, barely visible in faded print, was PH1, Penthouse 1, a suite labeled Record Storage. I brought the map to Eddie. He stared at it for a long time, then quietly folded it and handed it back. "That floor's not part of the lease," he said. "Whatever's up there, it was sealed off for a reason." A few weeks later, I unpacked one of my old work bags to look for a badge scanner I thought I'd lost. At the bottom was a sheet of paper I didn't remember printing. No logo, no formatting, just a timestamp, 1:15 a.m. And that night, right at 1:15 a.m., my apartment printer turned on by itself. They never should have let us back into that wing. I've thought about that every night since it happened. We were supposed to move floors in August, but construction delays pushed everything back. So they relocated our team into some old overflow offices on 4 North. Quiet, forgotten, barely used. We didn't question it. Not until we opened a door that shouldn't have existed. And once we stepped through, we found a part of the building that no one had touched in decades. What's messed up is, I've worked here for 4 years. I've seen the blueprints. I know every floor layout, every exit, every utility room. The space we found, it wasn't on any map. It didn't match any hallway we'd ever walked. But it was there. Lights off, air stale. And someone had been using it. I work for an actuarial consulting firm that leases several floors in a downtown high-rise. It's one of those old buildings that got a corporate facelift in the early 2000s. Marble lobby, badge access, security desk with a guy who's always scrolling his phone. I'd been there long enough to know what was normal and what wasn't. So when we moved to 4 North, I noticed right away how little foot traffic there was. We had one hallway, one entrance, and nobody else ever came by. Our team had about 15 people squeezed into a space that used to be storage. There were signs that it had once been offices, glass panels, faded cubicle lines, but the lights were dim, and half the outlets didn't work. We kept the main hallway door propped open during the day, but most of the time it felt like we were cut off from the rest of the building. There was no cell signal back there. Even the Wi-Fi was spotty. The only hallway that led to our wing had a few closed doors and a utility closet at the far end. But across from that closet was a weird gray door, completely flush with the wall. No nameplate, no keycard reader, no knob, just a hairline seam and a faint strip of scuff marks on the floor. You wouldn't notice it unless you were looking directly at it. That's what bugged me. At first we thought it might be for maintenance or some fire exit that had been sealed off, but the building's emergency plan didn't list it. One of the security guys downstairs told me, "That section's supposed to be sealed. Old layout or something." Then he changed the subject. And after that, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The hallway was quiet. Too quiet. Like the sound never bounced back. You'd hear your own footsteps, but nothing else. Jamal, one of the guys I worked with, kept calling it the back rooms. He'd joke about it every time he passed the door, even acted like it was moving once, just to screw with me. I didn't find it funny. The whole setup gave me a headache. And then, one Friday afternoon, the janitorial crew left the utility closet open, and I found something that made it worse. There was a loose panel behind the mop sink that looked like an old breaker box. But when I opened it, the switches weren't labeled like normal circuits. They had strange codes, things like Room 413 and Duplicate Room West Hall. I took a picture and showed Jamal, and his eyes lit up. That's gotta be the weird hallway. You think it's wired for something? The next Monday we came in and the gray door was cracked open. Just barely, like it had been pulled inward and not shut properly. I walked over and pushed on it gently, and it creaked open with this groaning sound, like metal that hadn't moved in years. Behind it was a pitch-dark hallway. The floor looked tiled. There were old wall sconces, no lights on. Just dead space. Jamal looked at me and said, "You going in?" And I did. We didn't go far. Maybe 10 feet in. There were office doors lining the walls, older than anything else in the building. Beige steel with narrow wired glass windows. The first one had a nameplate that read, K. Dillard, Field Operations. That stopped me cold. I'd never heard of anyone by that name. I pulled out my phone to take a photo, but the screen kept pulsing like it couldn't focus. Jamal's flashlight app glitched too, and the carpet, it felt damp. Not wet enough to leave footprints, just soft and wrong, like it had soaked something long ago. I told him we were leaving. Back at my desk, I pulled up the building schematics. Nothing matched. That hallway wasn't on any of our floor plans, even the archived ones. It should have been a solid wall. And the room numbers? They didn't exist. I overlaid the plans on a blank map and tried to trace where we'd been. It didn't make sense. Not unless someone had built something and never logged it. That night I couldn't let it go. I searched the name on the door, K. Dillard, and eventually found an old article in a scanned newspaper archive. It was dated 1988. It said Kenneth Dillard, regional field supervisor for our company, same logo, older name, went missing from company headquarters in an incident under investigation. Last seen on site, presumed dead. The next day, Jamal and I went back. We brought real flashlights this time. The hallway looked the same, but the door marked K. Dillard was now slightly ajar. Jamal pushed it open and froze. Inside was a desk, an old swivel chair, and a tan overcoat hung neatly on a rack. An ID badge was clipped to it. The face was grainy, but under it was the name, K. Dillard. I stepped in slowly and looked at the wall behind the desk. It was covered in pinned notes and yellowing floor plans. One of them had room 413 circled in red. I snapped a picture, and my phone went black. We left immediately. Jamal said he heard something behind us, shuffling, maybe breathing. I didn't hear it, but I believe him. We didn't tell anyone. I filed a fake maintenance ticket so they'd send someone up to seal the closet again. And when a fire drill got announced that Friday, Jamal and I used it as cover to go look one last time. The gray door, it was gone. Wall patched, painted over. No seam. Like it was never there. A week later, Jamal told me he'd put in notice. Said he got a remote job. He doesn't want to work in buildings anymore. I don't blame him. Because just last week, on my way to the elevator, I saw something that stopped me in my tracks. Down a different hallway on 6th South. Another gray door. Same size, same shape. Flush with the wall. And this one, too, was open just slightly. I still don't know how he got in. The building logs showed no entry, no exit. But when the basement camera feed came back at 2:13 a.m., there was a paper coffee cup sitting outside a locked basement suite, one that's supposed to be vacant. I work night security at a 7-story office building. After 7 p.m., it's just me and the cameras. That cup wasn't there 10 minutes earlier, and there was no one on the footage. Just silence. Then the cup. I'm not saying I saw anything supernatural. If anything, that's what makes it worse. The first couple weeks I was there, it was uneventful. Just dusty elevators, vending machines humming, the low click of the building cooling off at night. The building had one level below ground, used mostly for storage, and a few unused suites. One of them, Suite B1, used to be a dentist's office, but it had been unoccupied for years. Empty lease, no lights, no activity, until it wasn't. I first noticed something was off when I went down there during a routine sweep and saw the lock on B1's door had been changed. Not just rekeyed, completely swapped out. The old key we had on file no longer worked. I logged it and emailed my supervisor, but he said it was probably maintenance. Except maintenance hadn't been scheduled for that level in months. I left it alone for the night, but I started keeping a closer eye on that hallway. That's when the weird stuff began. One night, the camera feed from the basement hallway flickered around 2 a.m. Nothing dramatic, just a skip in the recording. When I reviewed the footage, there was a 20-minute gap. Right in the middle of that window, the motion detector near Suite B1 went off. No camera footage, no logged entries at the garage level. Just that one motion sensor, like something moved through the dark with no record of how it got in or out. A few nights later, I did a full patrol and found a folded paper coffee cup left neatly on the floor outside the suite. No trash, no coffee in it. Just placed there, perfectly centered in front of the door. It hadn't been there during my last round. That made me feel something I hadn't in years on the job. Unease. Because this wasn't vandalism or random clutter. It felt like a message, like someone knew the routine better than I did. When I brought it up to management, they brushed it off. Said maybe the cleaning crew left it, or a contractor had been through. I asked for an updated tenant list just in case, wanted to see if maybe the space had been leased without anyone telling me. The list showed nothing. B1 was still marked as vacant. Don't overthink it, they said. Just make your rounds. I started checking that floor more often, even though it wasn't required. One night around 3 a.m., I caught a faint electrical hum coming from under the door, like a phone charger or a mini fridge. But there were no lights on inside. I stood there for a while, just listening. And then I heard movement. Not footsteps exactly. More like fabric brushing against something, or a slow shift of weight from one foot to the other. I knocked once. No answer. The sound stopped. Later that week, I caught the cleaning crew near the freight elevator and casually asked if they ever saw anyone downstairs. One of the women, Maria, paused. Then she nodded slowly. I thought someone moved in, she said. There's a man down there, right? I told her the unit was supposed to be empty. She just stared at me. The next time the motion detector went off, I didn't call it in. I just went. I waited until the building was dead silent, then rode the service elevator to the basement. This time the hallway light outside B1 was already on. I didn't turn it on. It has a sensor, which means something else had walked by before me. I approached slowly. The coffee cup was gone. But now, there was something else. The faint smell of aftershave, like someone had just gotten ready in the dark. I never saw his face. Not directly, but once, as I was coming down the stairs, I caught a shape rounding the corner into the hallway, just the back of a man in a dark hoodie. Too fast to follow without making it obvious. I got to B1 less than 10 seconds later. The light was off again, the hallway empty. And I swear, this part gets me still. There were fresh shoe prints on the tile. Just 2, facing the door. After that, I started skipping the basement. I figured if management didn't care, I wasn't about to go hunting shadows. But the presence didn't stop. I'd hear the elevator ding in the middle of the night with no one inside. One morning, I opened my locker and found that same folded coffee cup inside, placed neatly on the top shelf. No message, no markings, just placed there, like a hello or a warning. I quit a month later, not because of what I saw, but because of what I couldn't prove. That someone had been living down there, using that space like a second skin, quietly, deliberate, almost respectful, but undeniably real. And no one else seemed to care. 2 months after I left, I got a text from one of the guards who replaced me. Just one line, no greeting. It said, "You never told me about the guy in B1.